Hi, my name is Rani and I make leather bracelets. Today's video is about machine sewing versus hand sewing. Now, why did I decide to make a video about this subject? Let me give you a little background. About a year ago, I decided that I'm going to start making iPhone cases. Something like this. And I worked on it, on the prototypes. I worked for an entire year, every single day. Fast forward 1 year today, I have still not launched the product. And why is that? Because there were so many things that I had to figure out. First of all, what kind of leather do I use? Do I use thick or thin leather? What thickness? What hardness of leather should I use? Should I use soft leather or hard leather? Secondly, what kind of clasp should I use? Should I use a magnetic clasp, a snap, or something else? If magnetic, how do I incorporate the magnet into the design? Thirdly, how do I cut the leather? Do I go ahead and order a die, which is very expensive, for every single model of iPhone that is out there? Or do I just use a knife, and there are knives, curved knives with angles and curves to cut the leather. There were so many topics, and the topic that is most difficult, and I still haven't decided yet, is should I sew it with the machine or should I sew it by hand? So for each one of these subjects I can make an entire video, but the video today is just about the subject of hand sewing versus machine sewing. Starting with hand sewing, one major advantage is its simplicity. The tools required are minimal and cost-effective, and the technique is easy to learn and perform. All that's needed are a punch or chisel to make holes, a hammer or mallet, thread, needles, and possibly a vise or pony to secure the leather. Hand sewing offers another distinctive advantage in the ability to create a unique and unmistakable handmade aesthetic. This is achieved through the use of thicker thread, typically around 0.8 or 1 millimeter in diameter. The use of such thick thread imparts a rugged, durable, and authentic appearance to hand-sewn products. The visible stitches crafted with this substantial thread contribute to the overall character and charm of the finished piece, creating a visual and tactile appeal that is distinctly different from machine-sewn items. The thicker thread used in hand sewing not only adds to the visual appeal, but also enhances the durability of the product. The robust nature of the thread lends strength to the seams, ensuring that the finished item is not only aesthetically pleasing, but also resilient and long-lasting. This combination of visual appeal and structural integrity adds to the allure of hand-sewn products, making them highly sought after for their unique and artisanal qualities. Hand sewing, while offering numerous advantages, does indeed come with the disadvantage of being relatively slow compared to machine sewing. The time-consuming nature of hand sewing is a result of the meticulous and manual process involved in creating each stitch. Unlike machine sewing, which can rapidly produce a large number of stitches in a short amount of time, hand sewing requires a significant investment of time and patience. The leisurely pace allows for a high level of precision and attention to detail, resulting in finely crafted and carefully executed stitches. Additionally, the process of hand sewing can be meditative and relaxing activity, allowing artisans to immerse themselves in the creative process and fully engage with their work. Furthermore, the slower pace of hand sewing can be seen as an opportunity for thoughtful and intentional craftsmanship. Each stitch becomes a labor of love, and the resulting product carries with it the dedication and care of the artisan. Let's now consider machine sewing. Unlike hand sewing, machine sewing is much faster, allowing for the production of a large quantity of products per day with minimal effort. Sewing by machine is indeed a lot faster than sewing by hand. I did an experiment today. I sewed 2 bracelets, one by machine and one by hand. This is just the base of the bracelet. A buckle goes here, all kinds of elements go here. I'm just showing you the base. So this is by machine. It took me 2 minutes. I timed it with a stopwatch. And then I did this one by hand. You can see the thicker thread. It took me 15 minutes, not counting making the holes. The holes take time. There are different techniques to make the holes. Like I showed you at the beginning of the video, you can do it by punch and a hammer. You can do it with a die that has the pre-made pins. And you can also do it with a sewing machine. Take out the thread and just use the sewing machine to make the holes. However, one downside of machine sewing is the initial complexity. It requires extensive research and trial and error to find the right sewing machine suitable for the specific product and type of leather or fabric. Additionally, there is a financial consideration, as some sewing machines can be quite expensive. I can tell you from my experience that as long as I was making my leather bracelets, which are made of 2 layers of 1.5 millimeters soft crazy horse leather, my Singer heavy duty sewing machine was doing just fine. The stitches were beautiful. But when I began to develop my iPhone case, and I began looking at thicker leather, 2 millimeter crazy horse leather, which is a little bit thicker and harder, then my Singer heavy duty could no longer handle it. The stitches were not looking good, and I had to buy the Sailrite Ultra Feed, which is an industrial walking foot sewing machine. Another aspect of machine sewing, particularly for leather work, is the need for a higher level of skill. Significant training and practice are necessary to master the machine. Mistakes in stitching leather, such as drilling a hole in the wrong spot, are visible and irreversible, resulting in ruined material that must be discarded. In my previous video, Singer Heavy Duty versus Sailrite Ultrafeed, I said that operating a sewing machine is a lot like drilling. Well, I also think that operating a sewing machine is a lot like driving. In fact, operating a sewing machine is a combination of driving and drilling. You are driving and drilling at the same time. The fabric that you are sewing is like the road. The foot pedal of the sewing machine is like the gas pedal of a car. You use it to start the machine, to stop the machine, to accelerate. You can go faster, you can go slower. Sometimes you drive straight, fast, like in a highway. Sometimes you take a curve, you take a turn. Exactly like with a sewing machine, sometimes we sew straight lines, sometimes we sew curved lines and corners. So operating a sewing machine requires a very high level of synchronization between the eyes, the hands, and the feet. So if you're a sewing machine operator, or you aspire to be a sewing machine operator, don't underestimate yourself. This is not something that everybody can do. It requires concentration and focus, especially when sewing leather. Now, leather, 1 foot of leather is sold in feet, in square feet. 1 square foot of leather costs anywhere between $5 to $15. So let's say on average $10. 1 foot is, a square foot is 30 by 30 centimeters. It's something like this. In my case, if I want to make iPhone cases, I would need about a foot to make an iPhone case. As a comparison, for example, denim or jeans would cost you about $2 per square foot. Leather, 1 square foot, $10 on average. That's a lot of money. So if you make a mistake when you're sewing, the sewing machine is always going very, very fast. If you make a mistake, you sewed a crooked line. You basically, you can't fix it. You have just lost $10. And that's the reason that I can say for myself that for a long period of time, every time I stepped up to the sewing machine, I had a very high level of anxiety, and it took time, probably months, to get over that anxiety and gain that confidence with the sewing machine. Okay, so before we go, I want to talk about one subject that basically summarizes everything that we have been talking about. We said that what makes the hand-sewn product so cool is the 1 millimeter thick thread, among other things, but one of the main things. So many people ask, and this is what I've been asking when I started working with leather, is can we get a sewing machine that will sew a 1 millimeter thick thread? Well, I'm not an expert on sewing machines. I've got 2 sewing machines. I've got a Singer Heavy Duty, and I've got a Sailrite Ultra Feed. My Singer Heavy Duty will go up to 0.3 millimeter thread tops. It cannot go higher. Now 0.3 millimeters, this is some basic stuff you have to know when you start sewing leather. 0.3 millimeter thread is also known as 69 or T70. Now the Sailrite Ultra Feed will go up to 0.4 millimeters. 0.4 is thread size 138, or also known as T135. So the Sailrite Ultra Feed, which is a industrial walking foot sewing machine, will only go up to 0.4, which is not even half of 1 millimeter. So I'm asking you guys, maybe out there are some of you guys who have got sewing machines that can sew thicker threads. I'm talking just about leather now. Don't tell me I'm sewing canvas with a 0.7. Leather is a whole different story. It's much harder than other materials. So let me know down in the comments, what sewing machine do we need to sew something thicker than 0.4. Now one last thing before we go. I want to tell you how I got over my anxiety with a sewing machine, how I practiced, how I trained on the sewing machine before starting to sew leather, not to waste ruined precious leather. I made iPhone cases out of cardboard. You can see this is an example of a cardboard iPhone case that I made. I made dozens of these just to practice. You will need, if you want to do that too, it will not work with any old cardboard. You need high quality cardboard. It's slim, it's thin, and it's dense, and it has a kind of lamination. They usually use these for packaging of toys and electrical appliances. That's the kind of cardboard that works best for sewing. You can sew it, you can train, and get over any fear and anxiety that you have with the leather.